Hi there. All right, so here we are for chapter 35. When we left Odd, it just had suddenly occurred to him that um, Rosalia Sanchez, his landlady, may not be safe. Um, the guy that had come with Bob Robertson, obviously, and had killed him, um, might have been concerned about witnesses that saw him arrive and went over and took care of Rosalia. So odd, this just occurred to him. So that's kind of where we start, chapter 35. So here we go. I started across the driveway toward Rosalia's back porch before I realized that I had begun to move. After a few steps, I halted. If she was dead, I could do nothing for her. And if Robertson's killer had visited her, he had surely not left her alive. Until now, I had thought of Robertson as a lone gunman, a mental and moral freak scheming toward his bloody moment in history, like so many of those infamous scum in his exquisitely maintained files. He might have been exactly that at one time, but he had become that and more. He had met another who thrilled to the same fantasies of mindless slaughter, and together they had grown into a beast with two faces, two hateful hearts, and four busy hands to do the devil's work. The clue had hung on the shady wall, the clue had hung on the study wall in Robertson's house, but I had not understood it. Manson, McVeigh, and Atta, none of them had worked alone. They had conspired with others. In the files were case histories of numerous serial killers and mass murderers who acted alone, but the three faces in his shrine were men who had found meaning in a brotherhood of evil. My illegal visit to Robertson's residence in Camp's Inn had somehow become known to him. Maybe cameras were hidden in the house. Sociopaths are frequently paranoids as well. If he chose to do so, Robertson had financial resources large enough to equip his home with well-concealed, state-of-the-art video cams. He must have told his murderous friend that I had prowled his rooms. His kill buddy might have then had decided that he himself was at risk if his association with Robertson became known. Or because of my nosing around, Robertson might have grown nervous about their plans for August 15th. He might have wanted to postpone the slaughter that they had been prepared to commit. Perhaps his psychotic friend had been too excited to accept a delay. Having for so long contemplated this delicious violence, he now had a hunger for it, a need. I turned away from Rosalia's house. If I went in there and discovered that she had been murdered as a consequence of my actions, I doubted that I would have the will to deal with Robertson's body. At the very thought of discovering her corpse, Odd Thomas, can you see me? Odd Thomas, am I still visible? I felt a loosening occur in the hinges of my reason, and I knew that I was at the risk of coming apart emotionally, if not psychologically. Viola Peabody and her daughters were depending on me. Unknown numbers of people currently destined to die in Pico Mundo before the next sunset might be saved if I could stay out of jail, if I could learn the place and the time of the planned atrocity. As if magic suddenly overruled physics, the moonlight seemed to acquire weight. I felt the burden of that lunar radiance with every step that I took to the back of the garage, where the corpse waited in its white wrapping. The rear door of the garage was unlocked. That interior darkness smelled of tire rubber, motor oil, old grease, and a raw wood aroma baked from the exposed rafters by the summer heat. I set my shopping bag inside. Grimly aware that the day had taken both a mental and physical toll from me, I dragged the body across the threshold and closed the door. Only then did I fumble for the light switch. This detached garage contained two stalls, plus a home workshop where a third car might otherwise have been parked. Currently, one stall was empty, and Rosalia's Chevy stood in the space nearest the house. When I tried the car trunk, I found it locked. The thought of loading the corpse in the rear seat and driving with it behind my back disturbed me. In my 20 years, I have seen many strange things. One of the more bizarre was the ghost of President Lyndon Johnson disembarking from a Greyhound at the Pico Mundo bus terminal. He arrived from Portland, Oregon, by way of San Francisco and Sacramento, only to board at once an outbound Greyhound destined for Phoenix, Tucson, and Poinsett, Texas. Because he had died in a hospital, he wore pajamas, no slippers, and he looked forlorn. When he realized that I could see him, he glared angrily, then pulled down his pajamas and mooned me. I have never seen a corpse restored to life, however, nor have I encountered any corpse animated by evil sorcery. Yet the thought of turning my back on Robertson's cadaver and chauffeuring it to the lonely corner of Pico Mundo filled me with dread. On the other hand, I couldn't prop him fully wrapped on the front passenger seat and drive around with what appeared to be a 250-pound doobie. Getting the corpse into the back of the Chevy taxed both my strength and my stomach. In his cocoon, Robertson felt loose, soft, ripe. Repeatedly, the vivid memory of the ragged, wet bullet hole in his chest rose in my mind, the flabby and livid flesh around it, the dark custardly ooze that drooled from it. I had not peered closely at the wound, had quickly glanced away, yet that image kept rising like a dark sun in my mind. By the time I loaded the corpse in the car and closed the back door, sweat streamed from me as though some giant had wrung me out like a washcloth. That's how I felt, too. Outside at 2 o'clock in the morning, the temperature had fallen to a brisk 85. Here in the windowless garage, the climate was 10 degrees more desperate. Blinking the perspiration out of my eyes, I fumbled under the dashboard and found the wires that I needed. Shocking myself only once, I got the engine started. Through all of this, the dead man on the back seat did not stir. I turned out the garage light and put my plastic shopping bag on the passenger seat. I got behind the wheel and used the remote control to raise the garage door. Blotting my face on a handful of Kleenex plucked from the box in the console, I realized that I hadn't given a thought about where to unload my cargo. Neither the town dump nor a Goodwill Industries collection box seemed like a good idea. If Robertson were found too soon, Chief Porter would have hard questions for me that might interfere with my attempts to deflect whatever horror was soon to descend upon Pico Mundo. Ideally, the body would lie quietly decomposing for at least 24 hours before someone found it and had a new love for Jesus scared into him. Then I thought of the perfect hiding place, the Church of the Whispering Comet topless bar, adult bookstore, and burger heaven. There you go. That was chapter 35. See you next time.